see you.
Good to see you. Well, thank you again for coming and playing with our students.
Oh yeah, that was a good time.
Oh, good.
Hey everyone, thank you for coming out for Data Nerds April monthly meetup. We have the live stream going, so hopefully we'll get some maybe activity there. But this month we have Dr. Apigian from MTSU, director of the MTSU Data Science Institute, here to talk about his uncollege approach to training data scientists. Let's get to it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, the idea, I keep saying uncollege because I want to start looking at what we do at MTSU in a different way. And with all of our wonderful friends around Nashville, I just know that what we can do in a growth market is going to be, we can do something special. And I'm seeing glimpses overall. I'm going to try to bring all that together for everybody today. But I hope what I get is good ideas on what I think is the most important part of developing data scientists, which is collaboration with industry and education. And that goes all the way to our K through 12, all the way through. And so, anyways, again, my name is Charlie Apigian. I am at MTSU. I've been there for 18 years. Used to be our department chair of information systems, and now I run the Data Science Institute, where we work with companies. We work with community partners, looking at opportunities to dive into data. And we also do some different research projects as well. So, I'll be the first to admit college is broken, or our education system is broken. There's a lot of spots where we can really make a change, and it's really hard to do because it's a long-term project. And a lot of us want data scientists today. You're not waiting 8 years, but I have to look at it holistically through that 8-year approach, or whatever it takes to get kids interested in this area. And then from that, get them into this field. So I'm going to talk about a couple of little things. And, if we're not talking, having a good dialogue going, then I'm not meeting the objective of today, which is get some really smart people in the room to talk about what I think is a growing need, which is the IT workforce. So just to give you some of what I have done recently, which kind of opened my eyes to what we can do. I actually was working with the Tennessee Economic and Community Development Office, the TNECD, for a grant last year. And what they had asked me to do was look at apprenticeship programs for information technology. And so I went out and interviewed about 10 to 15 companies, interviewed every TCAT, community college, four-year institution, reached out to Nashville Software School. We talked as well. Actually, Mary, that's when I think when I met you is when I came and did that interview that one time. And so through that, I created a report for them. I've got the link up here. But what I noticed is a couple of things, and I'll show it to you on the next slide here. But if you look at K through 12, you see some glaring problems, and you understand why they're not coming to us straight from high school, interested in technology or data science or in something in our field. And a lot of it has to do with they do an amazing job these days in K through 5. K through 5, I mean, they do computational thinking. They use these makey-makeys. They'll build all these different things. They'll even do some coding at that age, and then they drop them off the deep end into the abyss of middle school. And how many of you are sitting in this room right now going, gosh, middle school was the best. It was when, puberty hit and, that awkward stage of life. And there is nothing more intimidating for a female than to go into a coding class in 6th through 8th grade. And there's just not many of them. There's not many because there's not the qualified teachers. It's hard to have that because if you teach coding in a middle school or a high school, you then have to fight to get kids in to want to take your classes. And so you're trying to pitch that, and then come on in. By the way, there's bagels, there's coffee. Don't be shy because I ain't bringing it home. But what you notice is it's very intimidating. And it's not fair. It's hard to get teachers. It's hard to get students. And so there's this lost time, which is 6th through 8th grade. And in high school now, I don't know if you really realize this wasn't the case for me, but you now have to choose in 8th grade what your path is in high school. I mean, what is 8th grade? My son is 8th grade right now. He's 14 years old. Come on in. And for a 14-year-old to decide on his future just doesn't seem right to me.
I'm sure it's right for an 18-year-old either.
It's not for an 18, and you know what? When I was 25, it wasn't ready.
I'm still.
I think we all are. I still want to be a veterinarian. I do. I'll admit it. That's what I've always wanted to be. And my son today is saying, I want to be a vet, and he's in 8th grade. And I'm like, well, go for it. And, he's not going to sit there and say, well, I'm going to go where the jobs are, like you do later in life. So you see this major disconnect. So they're having to choose after not being exposed to what they can love. So what we kind of came up with is, if you look at something like assessing somebody's aptitude, that's different than interest. So you can do that. And U Science is an amazing company. They I think they're based here in Brentwood, but they do a lot of work in the Georgia school systems. Now they're starting to do work up here, but they have a way of assessing aptitude. And if you think of aptitude as different than interest, what that really means is, do you have the ability to do it? All right, get out. No, you out. Look at that guy. Good to see you, Phil. And aptitude is about, can you do it? And we all know that if you can do something and you're really good at it, do you like it over time once you're exposed to it? What do you think? Like, why does my one son like baseball and my other son like soccer? Well, one can't throw a ball and the other one can't kick one. So guess which sports they picked?
Yeah, right.
They were good at something, they started doing it, and they started liking it. So it's not fair to ask a kid if they have an interest in something if they've never been exposed to it, because they don't know what they're good at in 6th and 8th grade. So there is a way to look at aptitude now. And it's now actually, U Science just developed this year an aptitude test that now can determine if somebody has an aptitude in technology or in math or in statistics and things like that. So anyways, then let them experience it. And that can be an event, that can be whatever. And then let them start choosing what those paths are for them until they get to us. Because again, what ends up happening is students in information systems, which is different than computer science, they come to us late. They come to us after a couple of years in college already, because they don't know that that's what they're good at and that's what they should be doing. And we've got a lot of people in the room. Would you call yourselves programmers?
Yes.
Okay. But you're not hardcore programmers in most cases. I think I look at programming for data science as a different beast altogether. And a lot of it, people get turned off when you say, if you were in 8th grade saying, well, you're going to do programming for the next 4 years. It is intimidating to think that. And by the way, it's called coding in high school. Isn't that awful? I mean, what an incredible industry we're in, and it's called coding. So anyways, and then, of course, then you get to the opportunity for work experience. But I think this is really key to getting kids interested in something. They've got to know that they're good at it first, expose them to it, and then they can go from there. And I think that really is important. So just to show you, I know it's hard to read, and so I just want to point out a couple of things. If you look at some of the different numbers, you have interest and then you have aptitude. And what I'm absolutely amazed at is when you start looking at these numbers, you start to see who has aptitude and who has interest are such a varying amount. So you got information security analyst here, where in terms of females, only 19 were interested in it, but 863 had an aptitude. I mean, that to me is just mind-boggling to think, what if they were exposed to that? Or just the field in general, or some type of hackathon idea to get an idea. And then you look at the numbers. So the ones that always stuck out to me were the ones basically for females, where an interest here for computer systems analyst was an interest of 41, but an aptitude of 188. And in this test, they're not asked, do you want to be a computer systems analyst? They ask questions, are you interested in this, 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 and this? And then based on that, that kind of falls into that. And then they have questions about your aptitude. They make you take these tests. I actually had my kids do it. By the way, do it yourself. $29.99, go and do it. It shouldn't be a commercial for somebody else, but it's interesting to see. And they make you take these tests where you're timed and you got to get things in the right sequences. And my son was like, how did I do? I'm like, well, it's not a competition. It's just finding out what your aptitude is. And so anyways, as all of part of that, what really stuck out to me after all of that was the difference between aptitude and interest. And then the second part to that, and this is where you're all in the room here today to help with, is education and skills. They're different. And so what I mean by education, and we could use any term for that. I don't have a good term for that part. But skills we all understand. If I want to get new skills, I want to learn how to learn Python programming, I go out, I'll take a MOOC, I'll do a course, I'll do whatever I want to do to learn those skills. But that's not normally what employers are looking for. What are they looking for?
Experience and degree.
Well, let's say entry level. So experience, of course, because experience shows something, doesn't it? And what is it? Those skills for an entry level person? What do you think?
Can you think through problems?
Oh, problem solving, of course, right? What else do you think they care about?
Ability to pick up technologies.
Learning on your own,
Right.
right? Absolutely. And so when I went and did all these, I went to Trinisys, Tractor Supply, HCA. I went to 10 companies. And of course, I can't remember any of them off the top of my head. When I asked every one of them, the only actual technical skill they asked for was SQL, which I'm kind of not surprised because everybody has to pull data. They're like, we'll teach the rest. But if they have an idea, usually of SQL, that helps out. And then if our stack is something else, it's okay. If they have the ability to learn, if they are willing to solve a problem, if they can communicate, if they have good time management skills. Lord knows we try to teach that in college. It's one of those tough things. I got homework due today at 6. Guess when they're going to start that? That kind of thing. But that's the education part. And education doesn't have to be at a university. Doesn't have to be in K through 12. My dad definitely got an education, but it was at a meatpacking company. Then it was at a tool shop. And it probably took him, according to him, 10 years, 15 years to get that. So we try to accelerate that, right? We try to accelerate the educational experience. And when we do that, we think it's K through 12 and then 4-year degree. And I want to make that very clear that education part is time management, takes time to learn. Communication takes time to learn. Problem solving doesn't happen overnight, but we're trying to force that through to people. And so let's try to differentiate between skills and education. And here I'm calling it knowledge. And by the way, this was specifically for the state of Tennessee. They asked me to only look at community colleges, TCATs, and 4-year institutions. I did not include things that were outside of the state of Tennessee's purview. So in looking at that, I looked at every possible option for education after you graduate from high school, and which ones give you higher knowledge and which ones give you higher skills. And I first of all don't believe that anybody has high skills at the end of any degree you get, because how can I simulate 40 hours a week of work?
Right.
10-hour homework assignment, and so it's hard for us to be able to do that. So I'll never say that. But do I think you can get to the point where they're educated? Yeah, I think you can. And I think we all agree on that part, that we have to differentiate now in terms of education and skills. So let's stop fighting over, a 4-year degree is not getting them the skills they need. You're right. Of course you're right. But are they educated? Are they able to problem solve? Are they willing to be part of a team? And if not, then we're really failing. That's when it becomes more of an issue. So to really complicate things, here's my silly drawings on what I think is most important about education, and including everything that I think is important. That includes employers, tech training. Tech training is my way of just saying more like our boot camp style stuff that's in town, and like Nashville Software School, 4-year education. I put MOOCs on there. How many of you? Everybody in this room has watched an online class, right? And everybody has not finished that online class, right?
Yeah.
But you got what you wanted out of it, and you moved on. You got the skills, hopefully, or all I wanted to do was figure out how to fill in NAs. Okay, well, you got it, and you moved on with your life. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So, and of course, K through 12. So then I'm trying to figure out where you get those skills. So I got skills in general as fundamental, technical, and practical. And so practical is the kind of stuff you all just talked about. It's what employers want. They want the problem solving, time management, communication, learning on your own, and learning to fail. Learning to fail, by the way, is like my mission in life. It's like I know the whole soccer mentality. Everybody gets a trophy. Does everybody get a trophy in real life? No, it's not. But it's not about, I'm not trying to like force people to fail. I want people to go out, make mistakes, and then enjoy that and figure out how to go from there. Don't always give them the answer. I had a student last night. I used Slack, Slack for my class, and I got messages last night. It's one after the other from a student that I just love. Does great work, but he always wants me to give him the answer. And I'm like, I don't care what you do. Just try it yourself, and whatever happens, let's see. And he's like, but I'm not going to get a perfect score. I'm like, who said that? I'm more than okay if you just play around. I mean, Phil, you know that. I forced you to make a lot of mistakes. I got a former student of mine here. And so I'm more interested in that than I am anything else. And that's hard because not most people in higher education are assessing that way. And it's hard to do that. So anyways, that's what I think is probably the most important part a lot of times. We do need to get technical skills, and you get that from a lot of different places. And by the way, of course, you get that from employers as well. But that's the employer programs is referring to the internship idea, things like that. And then fundamentals, do you want anybody that can't read, write, that don't have math skills? And in our case, for data science, they should have some statistical background. And what do you notice, by the way? Is it easier to pick up programming skills or statistics skills? It's easier to pick up programming, isn't it? And so we got to do a good job of giving them that foundation, I think, statistically. We got to give them the math skills. We've got to give them the writing skills, the reading skills, the communication skills. And if we can give them some programming as well before we kick them out, that's great. But the truth is that's become secondary to what we really need to do. And so, I'm trying to teach a class right now in 7 weeks where I'm teaching them Python, teaching them machine learning, and how to solve a business problem. And the number one thing in that is solving the business problem, because the other two things don't matter if you have the wrong problem that you're trying to solve. So that becomes extremely important. And then I put this up here because domain knowledge is, each one of us have a different industry that we're in. And it's hard to do this stuff if you don't understand the business you're in. And so getting that comes from experience, whether it's internships, things like that. And then in terms of events, I think we could do a lot more of this. I think we can do a lot more joint type of events here in Nashville. What I love about Nashville is people love to work together, and they're okay to do that. We've got to embrace that because it's not like that in other places. I just came from Charleston, and I spoke at a supply chain and analytics conference. It was really cool, but the mentality there was employers don't talk to each other. Higher education doesn't talk to each other. They all feel like they're competitors. And I just don't feel that same thing here. And so I would absolutely come on up. I'd love to be able to embrace that more. And so if you ever have the luxury, I should say the penalty, I don't know what the right word thing is for it, but to go when a company is being recruited by the state of Tennessee, and you go into one of these rooms, that you have a long table just like this, and you sit around, and there'll be presidents of the universities all sitting there. This is the education part. They ask all the education partners to come in, and you've got the company there. They won't tell you the name of the company. It's Project X. There's like all these cool names they have for it. One was Aurora. Which one? That one we didn't get. Obviously we did pretty good with some other ones here recently where we've been able to get them. The last one I was at we didn't get, so it's probably my fault. I don't know. But when you're in the room, each one of those education partners by themselves, if you were to just look at them, you'd say, well, that's not enough for us to come to Nashville. You know, if I look at just Belmont, you know, is a great school, but by themselves, they're not going to be able to produce enough people. You know, MTSU is by far the largest provider of people. I mean, it's not even close. But we're still embarrassingly low for what we need in the IT field. But when you're sitting in there and you see everybody together, and it was actually somebody from Vanderbilt, Peter Rousis, that mentioned this. He said, if you look at each university by themselves, yes, you're right. You know, they're not going to supply everything. But when you add us all up, it's more than UT Austin. It's more than what you'll get in other cities. And I think we all work together to make that happen. And so the complement, we all have different places. We all have different paths. So where you fall on this, what skills you want to be able to get, maybe, you know, you pick your path differently. If you already are educated, you already have these skills, then you don't need to go to school to get these skills. And you're right, you don't need a 4-year degree if you already have an education, as long as you can get the job still, right? These skills, everybody in this room could probably learn on their own, technical skills. Or, you know, you can do it in a 6-month time frame. You can. But I just don't think learning how to problem solve happens in 6 months.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It's a lifetime project.
Well, you're never good at it, right?
Yeah.
Time management. I spend every day figuring out why am I, you know, because I'm getting better at putting a buffer in between things. But if I didn't leave the house at 6:15 today to get here, Murfreesboro, you know, gosh, it's a different country. I had to bring my passport to get here. I mean, I swear, it's getting that bad. But if I didn't just understand time management a little bit, you know, I mean, I struggle every day. That's probably my worst thing on this list. Is time management. And everybody thinks I'm good at it. It's like, how do you get so much done? I'm like, I don't. I get things half done is what I really do. And the perception is you get work done, right? But anyways, so with that, when I just want to throw up education, I want to throw it to you now. And this is just me sitting there while watching a game last night. Thank you, by the way, for those basketball fans that got up this early to get here after a late game, which was actually a very good game last night. I did win my poll. Hopefully you did too. I'd like to say that it was because I actually ran a model to figure out who the eventual winner would be. But the truth is I didn't do that.
I actually heard a lot of people that did models kind of crash because there was a lot of upsets.
Well, there's always a lot of upsets, and we picked the wrong upsets, I guess, is what it is. Yeah, if you picked it based on defense this year, you would have won. And I don't know if you'd have made that a variable that was more important. But I look at things that go into your education, and then what you want to come out of it, and what do you want? I mean, what are you looking for? I've got individuals here. You're probably looking for individuals to hire. What do you really want out of them? I mean, is it really just the technical skills? You don't care if they have a personality? Or, I mean, because usually you're hiring a person. You're hiring a team member. What do you want that person to be? Competence is, to me, the skills. You know, you want somebody that's competent. And, of course, I'd like them to be a lot better than that, especially if you're hiring a team. What you're noticing is get somebody that's good at this part, and you can add different pieces, right? Get the storyteller, get the person that does the machine learning, get the data engineer. You get one person that's good at everything. Now you got a team because that person is probably a unicorn. if you're looking for one person that does it all. So what would you want? What's the most important thing out of those?
I'd say it's a combination. To me, of course, depending what you're looking for, curiosity and competence. A tinker, someone that kind of evaluates a system and thinks, first, let me understand the system, and then is there something that I can contribute to the system to make it better? And I'm not saying someone who comes in and says, I'm going to throw this system out and I'm going to create my new shiny thing, because as everyone knows, when you try and do that, you end up breaking a lot of things, and the system that you create it may do certain things better, but it may not satisfy some existing requirements that you just didn't think about. So someone who has that kind of curiosity to understand something, and then the competence with the background to kind of maybe dive in and think, okay, what 1% improvement can I make?
Mm-hmm.
And also be a little humble to think in those kind of increments, because a lot of people think, I'm going to make a 100% improvement. No, you should be making 1%. If you can make a 1% improvement every month, that could be huge.
That is, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's important. I always hear people say, what they like about students when they come out is most of the time they're humble, because they are just excited that they made a 1/10% difference. I mean,
Absolutely.
Truthfully, but after years and you go in with experience, you're like, I got to make 30%, because that's why they now pay me the big bucks. But the truth is, you're right on that. In terms of what you want, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Walter Isaacson just wrote a book about Leonardo da Vinci. He said the single characteristic that made him was his curiosity. So I agree that curiosity is huge. But the other thing that I saw in my corporate career is that it kind of focused around that leadership box, because a lot of the ideas, the really good ideas that were bubbling up, would encounter resistance in a corporate structure. Because generally, when you have a new idea, you're goring somebody else's ops.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of good ideas just evaporate as a result. So I don't know what exactly you mean by leadership, but to me, there has to be, for an effective team, there has to be a vision, some kind of idea of why are we doing this?
Yeah, my best definition that I can come up for me personally on leadership is I want to sleep at night. I like getting 8 hours of sleep. You guys like staying up all night because you're worried about something? It's my time management skills again, right? And for me to sleep at night, I got to do good things. And for me to do good things, that means every time I go to make a decision, if I'm ever have made a decision for personal gain over what's right, it's never worked out for me. And so every time I go to, and so I get myself in trouble at my school, because at the end of the day, I want to do what's best for my students. I don't care how they get educated. I don't care what it takes. My mission in life is to get kids from the Middle Tennessee area career ready. And I hope it's in IT or in data science. That's my mission. And so if I can have every decision I make go back to that, then I sleep at night. That to me is how I want to be a leader. I don't need a title for that. I don't need anything else. I hope you feel the same way. And I think there are a lot of people in Nashville that feel that way. We're happy people because we do good things. Anytime you say, that's why you'll see it on my laptop here, using data for good. Anytime you say that to people here in Nashville, they get excited. And I think that's important. So that's my definition of leadership. And so I end up leading things because I end up having a passion for what I do. Then so be it. And I think that's really important for me personally. Leadership for others is other ways to go. Do you have something?
I was going to say, to complement your model there, and one thing I see drastically missing is customer service skills. That is, you can have all these things, but if you don't make the customer happy, it's all for naught. Like, for instance, what Alexander says, your definition of improvement, 30%, 1%, if it's 2% and it makes the customer way happy, then your opinion doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's the bottom line.
Who's the customer?
You define who the customer is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's basically it. it's the VP of such and such. If it's the external customer, yeah, you tell me.
It's a financial analyst you're building some sort of dashboard for. It could be
Internal, external,
Right.
it just depends, right? One slide back, can we go back
Sure.
to the data readiness piece? One thing, the education thing that I think was very helpful and along the similar lines of my previous comment was what I don't see there is kind of entrepreneurship mindset. So what I was impacted was I went through junior achievement, I went through summer enterprise, I went through my own paper route. Those entrepreneurial skills is what drives, again, customers, you know, at the end of the day. I was leading at 8th grade a team of individuals that are way older than me, most of them were high school kids, and we had to go and sell a product door to door in the old school days of, you know, in this case, it was a jar opener. We had to make it with bandsaws and, you know, all kinds of materials, and, you know, that's what you needed to do to get that entrepreneurship flavor that is required, because you can do all this stuff, but then you're gonna be, you know, in a box, basically. So that adds to that piece that I'm not sure quite in the
No,
experience bucket,
yeah,
that's
maybe I need to
bucket,
redefine this
values.
because you're absolutely right. Like I think about, I mean, what shaped me a lot of the stuff. I mean, like even just being president of my fraternity way back when, you know, or something like that, or like my daughter is in every single organization out there. She's Big Brothers Big Sisters. She's, you know, now in charge of their dance marathon, you know, and she always goes after things like that. And then she, you could just tell that she's developing skills through things that have nothing to do with what her future career is going to be. And that probably is something, because it's, I love that thought.
What it is, it's a leadership and curiosity combined, basically. I think if you look at the next slide, you know, it's kind of,
Yeah.
it's under that umbrella. You know, maybe you should add that.
Yes and no. I mean, leadership can be defined in many ways, right? Well, how I see it is the customer, you can be a great leader of people internally, but sadly, in many companies, we've done a poor job in leading our customers and defining what those customer requirements are. So don't quite buy what you're saying, but I understand.
Yeah, but what makes individuals, so we've all been in organizations. Why are the same type of person or the same person always the one that ends up going to the top of getting things done? Why are they part of that 20%? Alex, why are you in charge of this wonderful meetup? Which, by the way, what's wrong with you people? Why are you here? This is wonderful. You knew I was bringing bagels. Is that what it was? I know.
Actually, I didn't announce it. That was
I
a
know.
surprise for people.
Jeez,
They're just here to hear you talk.
Well, you know, the people in this room are those kind of people. But
Yeah.
but you know, you're in charge of something. Why is it?
Why am I in charge of something? Well, John Berryman was the person that started Data Nerds, which, fun fact, for people that know Penny University, he started Data Nerds before Penny University. And he started it with kind of the vision of just getting people together to talk about data science. And I had participated in a lot of meetups around Nashville. And to me, they seemed like they served a purpose, people coming together, listening to someone talk about something. But I was never super engaged because I never felt like most of the talks I could go to, I couldn't read it in a blog post. And then most people would leave afterwards. So I didn't feel like I was getting that kind of networking or connection, where when I came to Data Nerds, it was a conversation. It wasn't just one individual coming and speaking to a group. And so I kind of clung to that. And I started coming every monthly and every weekly. I was engaging with John. And I guess John he actually asked me to take it over. And I was interested in taking it over because I saw what John had done with it. And I saw, this is a great group of people, a great opportunity to try and help promote data science.
Yeah.
Why it's kind of fallen on me, I guess I enjoy doing interesting things. I like to tinker. Throughout my entire career, I've kind of built a lot of my career on. I've come into places and like I said before, when I'm looking for someone, if I was to hire someone who has curiosity and competence, that's kind of what I feel like my key areas are. And I'm working on entrepreneurship because I absolutely agree there. Good ideas can often die, but just that concept of coming in, understanding a system, and then trying to figure out what can I do to make this better. So I kind of took that to Data Nerds, and I'm trying to make it a little better in my own ways.
First of all, I applaud you for making this an opportunity for a conversation as opposed to just me coming up. And so I've taken that approach. I hope you guys are okay with that. I don't have that. I don't think any more slides except one with pictures of Alex actually on it. But you know what? The part that I actually did a talk for our graduating student. They were our graduate students graduating this one semester. And the one thing I told them, I got one word that I'll tell you. And I think this will, if you remember this, this is all you have to remember. And it always goes back to the same thing. If you care, right? If you're somebody, you're doing this because you care.
Absolutely.
And that's the word that always comes back to me. You don't travel, get up 2 hours early to go to something because you don't care. You're here on your own, you're here on your own will, and it's because you care. You want your career to advance, you want to be part of that, but you could have just watched the stream online and not been part of the conversation, but you want to be part of a conversation because you care normally. At least that's what I've always noticed. People show up to events because, and I'll go back to this slide real quick. This is what I'm learning real quick. I love the millennials, by the way. I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and bash millennial. I think they're the way to go. I love their passion. I love that they want to do things. And I want to embrace that. And that's why I want to really encourage all of you today. I can't do it by myself. Mary can't do it by herself. We need help when we are trying to get opportunities for students to learn for the future. It's all about doing. It's all about doing. Nobody is wanting to come to a class and watch somebody talk because we don't need that. You can stay at home and do that today. People want to go and they want to learn. When I'm sending my kids, I've got 4 wonderful kids. I want them to go to college. I want them to go. None of them so far. I've got 2 in college. Neither one has stayed home and gone to the school their dad works at. I don't know if that's because I'm a terrible dad. I don't know what it is. No, but the truth is, they wanted to experience life on their own, and I think they're going to get a better experience. They're going to do things more if they go out and be on their own. And none of us want our kids at the age of 18 to go to school and take online classes. Is it okay to take 1 and then take 4 in the classroom? Sure. There's nothing wrong with that. But, and life happens, by the way. An adult learner, a lot of times, the only thing you can do is online classes. I'm not saying that's for again, there's different ways to get to an education and skills. And right now with skills, I'm doing everything online. That's why I feel. That's why I do in my classes too. Everything I put online, but when you're in the classroom with me, we're doing. And I pretty much make it where it's something like this. Sit down, get people around you. There you go. There's our fearless leader here. He came 2 weeks ago now.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
And oops, why are you skipping? I must have it
Auto go through.
on an auto thing. But we did a data dive for Second Harvest. Second Harvest I've been working with a lot lately. And with Second Harvest, they're willing to give us all their data. Because what's proprietary about getting food from a food bank? And they're wonderful individuals with no staff. David Tinsley there is wonderful, but he's one person doing everything in IT. Frank Elmo is a wonderful person. He's director of operations, but he's one individual, and that's actually Frank right there. There's David. And these are students from MTSU. We've even got some individuals that are not from MTSU in these pictures. We did a hackathon at MTSU. That's somebody from one of the TCATs. We had people from Belmont on my team, Austin P, Motlow. So I have 5 university or schools represented on my team. And we did 25 individuals. That's us at 2:30 a.m. while we were hacking away. This is what students want to do. And by the way, in this picture, you'll see a couple other things. That's a professor that's in the room. She was there for both days, spent the entire time. That's actually a staff member at MTSU. She just came to want to learn some stuff. This has really inspired me. So when I think about education now, I've talked about, getting an education, getting skills. Most of the people in this room had no idea what they were doing. And that's okay. They were there. And, and Brandon, you were in the room. Our results were nothing special because we only had 2 days. And that's not enough time. We understand that. But that wasn't the final product. the final product was the journey that these students took, and faculty members and individuals from outside. And so this is what I want to really encourage a group like this to start being involved in, and let individual, and actually Phil, you were there too. Yeah, go ahead.
So why don't I see Vandy ever in these, like, meetings, like, data dive and stuff? Don't they have a data science institute as well? Are they starting?
Vanderbilt's doing wonderful work on the data side. You got to realize, though, they are on the medical side almost exclusively in terms of this kind of stuff. Their focus is a little different than ours. And that there's nothing wrong with it. They're doing exactly what Vanderbilt should be doing, and I hope we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're going to be more boots on the ground kind of thing, and I want to be working next to students, not in front of students. That's really what I'm trying to get at. Like, I've got a project right now. Dollar General was nice enough to give me a lot of data, and I'm using that for one of my projects. We're doing the same mentality, and I told all my students, we're all going to get in the same room. There's 5 different groups, and we're all going to help each other. And they're like, but that's cheating, and what are you going to? And I'm like, no, there's no cheating. We're just trying to learn. And at the end of the day, it's not the grade I care about. It's, am I going to recommend you for a job? That's what you should be caring about, and it's not an A or a B, that's just, did you get work done? So
It's all right.
with that, what I would love to be able to do is this be more of the crux. And so right now, actually at MTSU, we're developing a data science undergrad program. There's no way we're creating data scientists. We're creating people curious about data science. And if I can do 2 of these a semester, where we have hackathons like this, all of a sudden a student could graduate, go from 18 to 22, and have done, let's say, 6 to 8 hackathons. I call them data dives. And then they graduate. I think that's an employable person. That's going to be a curious person. They're going to have done that on their own, volunteering. And the commitment, by the way, was Friday for 8 hours, and it ended up being about 8 hours on Saturday as well, starting at 8 a.m. And they all showed. The end of the day on Saturday was the exact same number, pretty much, as what we started with on Friday. And everybody got to present. And in the end, now what we're doing out of that is I've already met with Frank and David, and we're going to create a team for the summer and just work on their data. And again, students, it's so funny. I have paid jobs where they can get paid pretty well to do the work with a couple of startups. They don't want that. They want to do these. They want to do good stuff. And that's so encouraging. Like, I'm almost like trying to get out of the consulting business now and just do free work. But unfortunately, MTSU is like, well, you got to pay the bills every now and then. I'm like, come on, we're a public university. Who cares? No. But these are the opportunities. This is my farm system. Get people involved, get them doing this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, one day they're going to be like, yeah, I'm happy to be on a project where I get paid because I've already done all of this. And get them that. Because what we're doing instead is, if you have no experience, we're saying, here, now you take them. Now you take them for a job. And that's not fair. So we got to give them that doing. But to give them doing, if they're doing things, we need help. I don't want your data, really. I'll be honest. There's more than enough data out there. I want you. I want you in the room. I'll come to you, by the way. We'll come up here. Nashville Software School's got a beautiful building. They'll let me in the room. I know they will. They're wonderful people. They're actually coming to visit with, a couple of them are coming down to visit with me tomorrow to talk about these kind of opportunities. I think that if we start looking at it as all of us trying to educate, I think that can set us apart, because we're not going to bring in many more people from the outside. People from Chicago are now starting to look at us like we have bad traffic.
So I have a question from YouTube. How do you curate the confidence of students?
Boy, that's a great question. It's what I spend almost all of my time on, is confidence, because they don't. Imposter syndrome is real with me. It's real with everybody in this room. Can you imagine what it's like for a student? So I think that goes back to, again, if they were able to sit in the room with you and in a non-threatening event, I think that to me is pretty powerful stuff. Phil, you've been involved in these. I actually he did a project with me last semester. What was the one thing you had 6 years because you did master's degree as well, where you gained the most experience over that time? What was the stuff? Was it in a class or?
Practice application, I guess.
Yeah.
Doing those projects in person, working with people, that kind of was helpful for team building as well. But also like that, diving deep and Googling for yourself, just that's a key skill in today's world that we all need. But like more for the area of confidence, I feel like it's getting out there and working with people, because if not, your communication skills don't develop. So that's a big thing.
That's such a great question, and it's students want a peek into that black box of real world, and it's hard to talk about that. It's hard to sit there and say, "Trust me, you'll be fine." But it's amazing how they really don't think you ever Google. They don't. They think you never have to go to Stack Overflow. And the truth is, the minute you say you're good at something, it's when you embrace the fact that you're always going to have a reference and you know where to go to get it. Like most of us now have good examples sitting somewhere. I got a notebook. I know I've done that before, right? And so I always go back to my own work now. But it's a lot faster to me to Google or find it on Stack Overflow. And I said this actually I was at the data dive. What makes me better today is that I'm faster at finding the answer, right? And students, that's where we fail, because we say you can't use things. You got to do this by hand. No, you don't. You got to. And so giving them that, I think, is extremely important. The confidence to me is what you end up spending the entire last year talking about.
Yeah.
And that's it. And
that was one of the experiences that I had at that data dive. Young woman, she was packing up. I said, "What are you doing?" She says, "I don't belong here. I don't understand." You try to talk them off the ledge, but I got to tell you, it's a problem.
Yeah.
I think you lost some people for that reason, which I'm not trying to denigrate the event at any rate, but it's worth thinking about how to find somebody to sort of throw the life preserver out to that person.
Well, I need more people willing to be in the room. And so
I experienced that as well. When I first sat down, I was just talking with students, and one young woman told me that she had been crying the previous week, and she felt that she couldn't be a data scientist with an economics. I think she's one of your students. When she said she had a master's in a business intelligence kind of focused program, and she said she didn't believe she could be a data scientist because she didn't have a PhD. And I said, well, let me tell you something. I'm a data scientist and I don't have a PhD, so I'm living proof that you do not need a PhD to be a data scientist. But just...
And by the way, I have the PhD. I did not need the PhD to be a data scientist.
Well, that's one of the great things about data science. It reminds me of, as you may have realized, I have been around a little while. When I started in working with computers, there was no such thing as computer science. It was not a degree. It was not a program. It was just a bunch of people out kind of doing it. And we all decided to call ourselves scientists, computer scientists. I see data science as doing exactly the same thing. Now, yes, there are now degrees and all that, but reality is, I call myself a computer engineer. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a scientist. Not really.
Yeah.
But I have these skills. And so, you want to be a data science? Look in the mirror, call yourself a data science, invest in the work, and guess what?
Yeah, and I love what you just said, because I have people come up to me all the time. Well, do you like when people say they're a data scientist? I'm like, yes, because that means they're in it. They're doing it. That means they're learning every day. I don't care where they are today and they're going to be somewhere different if they continue to embrace it. You have the curiosity to do this stuff. Call yourself a data scientist all day long. There is no test at the end of the day. This isn't engineering. Well, no bridge is going to fall down, hopefully, because of what we do. It's just data, and I think that's more than okay to think that way. And in your case, Brent, I put you on a team where that was a pretty raw team. It was a pretty raw team, a big one. And there were 2 or 3 people that said they weren't coming back. 2 out of the 3 did come back. And at the end of that, they were happy. And they're like, I didn't write a line of code, but I'm just glad I was able to be exposed to this. And I think that's so important to have that opportunity. So, we're doing good. We got like eight minutes or so.
Yeah.
I want to hear from each one of you. Enough about me. What is it that you want to hear, or what do you think is something, a word, you can say ditto if you wanted to say what the other person said. I get that. But what is it that you think in terms of developing data scientists for Nashville? What is part of that secret sauce? You wanna?
I like the practical aspects of doing data dives like this, and I'd like to see more of those. As well, being able to develop that failure attitude, that failure is okay. It's a discovery process and such, because so many of the new people that I see within my industry, they want to get it right. We have to get it right for the business at some point, right? But it's just a process. There's no recipe that works all the time, and having that diligence or grit, if you want to call it that way, to get through those things and actually not treat them as life-defining moments, but just a part of the process to get you to the right place.
That's excellent. Thank you. I wrote down the word grit too. That's a great word to think about. So.
I'm pretty fresh, so I don't know if I have anything to contribute.
What do you want then? What do you think?
Perfect.
Yeah, come on.
But I think for me, one of the biggest allures of data science and getting in this field, with the combination of me having an opportunity at the company I'm at now, and I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts, so I have no technical background, but I have had enough online research to know that there's some pretty low barriers for me to get to where I need to go, and that not having that technical degree is not a stopper, touching on what we talked about the last time.
Good. Excellent.
I think it's kind of funny, bouncing off what he was saying, how you take ownership of what you focus in. So I work for Tech Systems. I'm an IT recruiter, and I'm the one in the pit that was like, I'm a data scientist recruiter.
There you go.
I thought that's pretty awesome that you said that, because now everyone comes to me about data science. I'm like, well, I just think it's intriguing, and that's what I like to focus in. So
Bracing, go for it. Absolutely. Why not? Great.
Professor, one comment, and my commentary is this. I'll start with that. Be brave. I think that's the key. Whether you call it failure or what have you. I came from the business side, and I've migrated to the data side. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Excellent.
Second, going back to your model then, I would add a part of that education goes back to selling skills. Because at the end of the day, previously I was in Houston, Texas. I managed a data team there. And the number one thing that I had my people end up sending their emails to me first, and we would sit down together before we released it to a doctor, before we released it to a VP, before we released it to any business customer.
Mm-hmm.
We went through, and I'd say, okay, you're talking in geek speak. You think that VP is going to understand what you're talking about? And joining this or tagging this? No. So you need to be able to explain in clarity, in business or layman's terms, what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So, and then you can go and sell what it is your solution is.
Yeah. And by the way, when it comes to selling, data does a great job of being good support. But if you don't have an anecdotal story to go with it, you're not getting funding. I mean, and so selling is so important. It's amazing how people come in with their wonderful dashboards. They show it to everybody and says, yeah, that's great. Okay, we can move on with our life. But if they were able to tie that to a real story and show how it can make a real impact in their company, it'd be a big difference. So keep going around the room. Appreciate it.
I don't know if I have anything super enlightening, but whenever I think about data science and I talk to my friends about it, they don't have a clue that it's even a thing. So I feel like there's a lot of a lack of attention on it, almost. It could be more widely known.
I'll pick up on that. Yeah, I think accessibility is huge. And people, obviously, online, everything's online nowadays. So, if you're willing, you can find it. obviously, but it is nicer if, it's introduced to you. And of course, proximity is also a good thing too. So like MTSU is kind of far away for some people in Nashville, especially if they're working, and don't have the time to go like on a Friday, like the last hackathon. But so like maybe we could like talk to, different institutions like, this place or, different universities around here, Lipscomb, also Key, to like host these kinds of events, so they're closer to people around here. So that it's, we can make it more accessible for everyone.
I'm definitely interested in doing that. I think my next one I want up here.
Yeah.
I want more of you, and I know we'll travel.
Mm.
So that's definitely true. So.
So I think there's some really good programs around here. I attended the OSTP program in predictive analytics and really enjoyed that.
Good.
Year and a half ago. And encourage the universities to continue putting out the graduates.
Good. Keep going.
I'm just kind of new at all this, still just getting into it, but I'd like some more info on those data dives when you guys do those, maybe show up.
Hey, I think Alex is. I'm going to make him a co-creator right now because he helped come up with the original idea, and he showed up, brought pizza and everything.
Yeah.
So Axial was our first sponsor for that, and we really thank him for that. So if you're part of Data Nerds, I think you'll find out when the next one that we do is. Absolutely. And go back to what I think the hardest part about this field, honestly, is it's this big, and you can't learn all of that. But you really just need to start here and then go to here. And I think that's where a class really does well. I think, and I would absolutely encourage you to either find a good MOOC if you have the time. The idea of boot camps I think is fantastic for this field. Coming to me for 4 years, if you already got it for a degree, makes no sense. It really, I can't ask you to do that. But that idea of when I started trying to figure everything out, it was like this, that's too much. But if I just started with the data cleansing side and understand how to retrieve it and understand that part, and then I went off into supervised learning and just learned that first. Don't go off in the other areas. And then I went into, kept increasing what I knew. That was a lot easier than going, oh my gosh, data science. It's so hard. So, Mary, what you got?
So I want to just echo the aspect of practicum, practicing skills. It's how we do it in our programs, working with real data, answering real business questions. And it's not only really motivating for students to try to solve real problems, but it's a great way to learn in a realistic kind of way. And because nobody's saying anything about team building, I'm going to give a shout out to that because I've seen magic happen with diverse teams, sort of triggering someone to look at a problem in a different way and come up with novel solutions.
Excellent. Dale?
I think one of the most important things is the ability to self-learn and learn on your own. Not that you don't need any guidance, but if someone can come in and they know how to frame a problem, and they know the question, the right questions to ask, even if it's a new problem, they at least know how to establish the foundation and start building on that problem to eventually where they can get to the answer. I think that's huge.
Excellent.
They know how to learn efficiently.
Learning on your own, and you're right. And I'll have students all the time say, I spent 10 hours on whatever. I'm like, and 8 of those hours were doing what? You actually only spent, because I know we're all that way. So efficient learning is hard. It's hard. And if you're okay with taking 10 hours to learn 2 hours worth of content, that's okay. That's on your own time then. So
Exactly.
Yeah, a couple more here.
Strengthening the partnership between academia and industry. I think it's something
Preach
we
it.
focus on.
Love it.
At the General, we've got a good partnership with APSU, starting to form well on our way to forming a great partnership with the National Software School. So many times we see students coming out as we're recruiting that maybe have the skill set technically to use your definitions, but not the knowledge of how to apply it. And I think industry is often at the cutting edge of what technologies are being used, and those skills aren't being translated to the classroom. So to be able to go into the classroom and say, this is what tools we're using, this is where you should be focusing your energy on what you're learning. I know we're able to do that with the National Software School, present some data on a project that Tim's been focusing on really heavily. I serve on the PSM program at APSU. Actually, I helped design that curriculum, which was really special for me. So I think any opportunity we have to kind of, to your point, like get in front of it, right, and say, here's where the field is going. Like this is what students should be learning. You know, more Python, less SAS.
Thank you. Yeah. Very good. Last couple, how we doing on time?
We're going a little over, so let's just kind of wrap it up. No.
No. Everybody's here. That's it.
Go ahead, Brent.
Oh, well, I'll try to cut it short. I wanted to tell the story about this, or to kind of overcome this risk aversion, imposter syndrome, and why this is actually possible. We had a guy come to some of the data nerd meetings. He turned out to be very well versed in reinforcement learning. This kid learned data science and Python programming on his phone on the assembly line making tires. So I'm just telling you, you know, it's possible. As far as what I'd like to see, we talk a lot about how this is going to apply in industry because that's where the money is. But where the need is in the nonprofit arena and in the government arena. That's where the need is. And I would like to see us mining those sectors because I think it hits your sweet spot, which is people want to care.
Yeah.
And that's where that I think might be easier to demonstrate.
That is great to hear because that to me is, first of all, there's no better thing than to get everybody in the room. And at the end of that, you've now helped a second harvest become more efficient within their warehouse or help them reduce transportation costs because of whatever. I mean, that's good stuff. And people are willing to rally behind that. So I'm glad to hear that's opportunities.
Real quick, number one, we have a hackathon at FISC also. So what I'd like to see is more connection between the universities, basically.
You need the contact.
Hackathon, I get all that stuff to you, but I'm just saying this, you know, that kind of thing. They talked about what we have here in the Nashville area. We do need to collaborate more. Second thing is what I want to see more in data science. One reason why I'm here is because Python is great, R is fantastic, SAS, whatever, but most people don't program. And one of the proposals that I have now is trying to work with the psychology department and the computer science because we're trying to work on bias, not computational bias, but basically cultural bias, and trying to teach psychology majors who don't program what goes into the models to create, because we're having police and government basically using these models. So one thing that I see for data science is how to use things like Tableau, things like H2O or whatever for people who don't program extensively, still be able to do data science by using the deep learning models, using the data, doing the cleaning, but without having to do the programming side, because that way you'll get also more people involved in data science.
Absolutely. Good deal.
One of the things that I've learned recently is to try to solve problems and work incrementally. So don't go too big on trying to solve the problem. So
Excellent.
Do whatever you can in sort of an incremental fashion.
I like that a lot. So with that, I'll just, again, I put my information up here.
Have one little quick, we have someone from the chat, and this
Okay.
is from Chang, our remote person. And he says, embrace ambiguity, and I think that's great.
Embrace ambiguity. I love that.
I think that's something.
I want a sticker. I want that to be a sticker on my laptop. That's a great one.
That was a great line, because that is data science. It's an ambiguous field. There's so many aspects to it. So having the courage, bravery to kind of dive in and embrace that ambiguity and try and tackle problems.
That's excellent. Alex, thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you all. Grab something to eat. If you have any questions, I have cards as well if you want to do that. But anyways, let's change the way we do education. Why not? Why not do something radical? And that to me is very exciting because this is the field to do it in. So thanks for your time
Let's get
today.
a round of applause for Dr. Thank you, everyone.
Grab something to eat.
It was fascinating. That was discussing the ethics of